You know how some people lie on their resume? This guy turned it into a 40-year career and a Hollywood movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's talk about Frank Abagnale Jr. Born in 1948 in the Bronx, his parents divorced when he was 15, standard American teenager stuff. Except Frank had a problem. He liked spending money he didn't have. At 15, his dad gave him a gas credit card. Frank figured out a cute little scam. He'd buy car parts with the card, then return them for cash. Split the money with the gas station attendants. By the time his dad got the bill, Frank had racked up $3,400. That's about $30,000 today. His mom sent him to a Catholic reform school. Frank lasted exactly 0 seconds at reform school. He ran away. Then he joined the Navy. That lasted 3 months. They kicked him out in February 1965. 2 weeks later, he got arrested for petty larceny. A month after that, he tried to impersonate a cop with a toy gun and a paper badge. The judge took one look at this kid and said, "You need psychiatric help." They sent him to a mental hospital for observation. This is important. Remember this date. It's March 1965. Frank is 17 years old and already getting caught faster than a kid stealing candy. In June 1965, Frank stole some blank checks from a gas station, got arrested again. This time the judge wasn't playing games. 3 years in Great Meadow Prison in Comstock, New York. A real prison. Not juvie, not a holding cell, actual prison with actual inmates. Frank was inmate number 25367. He was 17 years old. According to New York State Archives, he stayed there until he was 20. That's July 1965 to December 1968. 3.5 years. Well, technically he got paroled after 2 years, then immediately stole a car in Boston and went right back to finish his sentence. Now here's where it gets interesting. During those exact years, Frank later claimed he was flying around the world as a fake Pan Am pilot, cashing millions of dollars in bad checks across 26 countries, outsmarting the FBI, living like a millionaire, being chased by a special task force. But prison records say he was behind bars, eating cafeteria food, and mopping floors. The math doesn't work. You can't be in 2 places at once, unless you're a wizard, and Frank was definitely not a wizard. When Frank finally got out in December 1968, he was 20 years old. He'd been locked up for most of his teenage years. What did he do? Did he learn his lesson and get a real job? Of course not. He bought a Trans World Airlines pilot uniform, not Pan Am, TWA. This is important because later Frank would claim he impersonated a Pan Am pilot for years. But according to court records and newspaper archives, he wore the uniform for about 12 weeks. 3 months. Not 3 years. 3 months. He flew to Louisiana and met a flight attendant named Paula Parks on a plane. She was working for Delta. Frank followed her. Not in a romantic way, in a creepy stalker way. He showed up in her city, then showed up again, then again. Finally, he met her parents in Baton Rouge. Charlotte and John Parks were nice people. They welcomed this young man into their home, gave him a room, cooked him meals, treated him like family. Frank thanked them by stealing their checkbook and forging checks in John's name. He took them out to fancy dinners using their own money, bought Charlotte flowers with her own money, stole about $1,200 total. The local police caught him in February 1969, arrested for vagrancy, theft, and forgery. The judge sentenced him to 12 years. But a local reverend felt sorry for Frank and convinced the judge to give him probation and psychiatric treatment instead. Frank walked. Then Sweden issued an Interpol warrant for some checks he'd written there. Frank got arrested again, sent to France, served 6 months, then to Sweden, another 6 months, then back to the United States. In November 1970, American police arrested him for check fraud totaling $1,448.60. Not millions, $1,400. That's the verified amount from federal court records. He got sentenced to 12 years federal prison, served about 4 years, and got paroled in 1974. So let's do the math. Between ages 16 and 22, Frank was free for maybe 14 months total. The rest of the time, he was in prison, getting arrested, or on trial. There was no 5-year FBI manhunt, there was no task force, the FBI barely knew who he was. Local cops kept catching him every few months like he was playing tag with toddlers. He never worked as a doctor in Georgia. Hospital administrators confirmed there was no overnight pediatrician position when Frank claimed to work there. He never passed the bar exam in Louisiana. The Attorney General's office has no record of him working there. He never taught at Brigham Young University. The school has no record of him. His name doesn't appear in any yearbooks or documents. But here's the brilliant part. The actual con. The masterpiece. In 1974, Frank got out of prison. He was 26 years old. He'd spent most of his adult life locked up. He had a criminal record. No education, no real skills except writing bad checks and getting caught. So he started telling a story. Not the real story, a better story. He said he was a teenage genius who outsmarted everyone. He said he flew over 1,000,000 miles as a fake pilot. He said he cashed $2.5 million in bad checks. He said the FBI chased him for years and years. In 1977, he got on a TV show called To Tell the Truth. It was perfect, a show about lying. He told his fake story, people loved it. Then he went on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, the biggest show in America, told the same lies. Everyone believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was charming, confident, the story was incredible. Who's going to check? This was before the internet, before you could Google someone's prison records. If Frank said he did something and he said it on national television with a straight face, people just believed it. In 1980, he wrote a book called Catch Me If You Can, co-written with someone else because Frank wasn't actually a writer. The book was full of the fake stories. Pan Am pilot, millions in bad checks, FBI manhunt, doctor, lawyer, professor, all of it. The book became a bestseller. Frank became famous. He started a consulting company teaching businesses about fraud prevention. The irony is perfect. A small time check forger who kept getting caught, now traveling the country as a fraud expert. Companies paid him $20,000 to $30,000 per speech. Universities invited him. The FBI started using him as an example, not because he worked for them as a consultant, by the way. That's another lie. The FBI has never confirmed he worked for them. But Frank kept saying it, and everyone kept believing it. For 40 years, Frank told the same lies in speeches and interviews. He'd change details sometimes. The amounts would go up, the crimes would get bigger. Nobody questioned it. Or when they did question it, nobody listened to them. A journalist named Ira Perry investigated Frank's claims in 1978, found out most of it was fake, published a big article. Nobody cared. A few other journalists over the years found the same thing. Nobody cared. Frank kept going on TV, kept giving speeches, kept making money. Then, in 2002, Steven Spielberg made a movie about Frank's fake life story. Leonardo DiCaprio played Frank as a charming teenage genius. Tom Hanks played the FBI agent chasing him. The movie made $352 million worldwide. Frank made a cameo in the movie as a French police officer. He consulted on the film. He told everyone the movie was mostly accurate. 80% true, he said in interviews. He appeared at the premiere with DiCaprio and Spielberg. Living the dream. A dream built entirely on lies about lies. The movie became a classic. They made a Broadway musical about it. Frank's net worth hit $10 million. All from a story about crimes he mostly didn't commit. Then in 2020, a journalist named Alan Logan decided to actually check Frank's story. Not just interview Frank, actually go to the archives, pull the prison records, talk to the victims, look at court documents. Logan found inmate number 25367, Frank Abagnale Jr., locked up from age 17 to 20, right when Frank claimed he was flying around the world. Logan found Paula Parks and her family. They confirmed Frank stole from them while pretending to be their friend. Logan found newspaper articles from 1965 showing Frank getting arrested in his hometown for stealing checks before he supposedly became this international criminal mastermind. Logan found arrest records showing Frank got caught over and over by local police. No FBI manhunt, no international task force, just regular cops arresting a kid who couldn't stop writing bad checks. Logan published all of this in a book called The Greatest Hoax on Earth, with copies of the prison documents, mugshots, court records, victim statements, everything. Frank's response? He said the book wasn't worthy of comment. He didn't read it. Didn't need to. Why would he? He'd been telling the same story for 40 years. It made him millions of dollars. It got him a Hollywood movie. At this point, the lie was more real than the truth. In 2022, Google added a disclaimer to Frank's talk on their YouTube channel, basically saying we don't endorse this content or vouch for its accuracy, we're only keeping it up for historical purposes, which is corporate speak for this guy's full of it, but we don't want to delete the video. The same year, Xavier University gave Frank an award for Heroes in Ethics. You cannot make this up. A guy who built his entire career on provable lies receiving an ethics award. It's like giving a fish a trophy for flying. So what actually happened here? Frank Abagnale was a troubled teenager who wrote bad checks and kept getting caught. He spent most of his late teens and early 20s in prison. When he got out, he was a nobody with a criminal record. So he turned his pathetic criminal history into an epic tale of genius and adventure. Then he sold that tale for 40 years to anyone who would listen. The real crime wasn't check fraud, it was fraud, meta fraud. Frank conned everyone into thinking he was a legendary con artist when he was actually just a guy who couldn't keep a scam going for more than a few months without getting arrested. And it worked. For decades. Through books and movies and speeches and awards, through interviews and documentaries and musicals. Nobody checked, nobody cared. The story was too good. The myth was too perfect. Why ruin it with facts? Frank Abagnale's greatest achievement wasn't fooling banks or airlines. It was fooling Steven Spielberg. It was fooling Leonardo DiCaprio. It was fooling millions of people into thinking a small time check forger was actually a criminal mastermind. That's the real con. That's the one that actually worked. Boom. He turned 3 months in a pilot uniform into years of international intrigue. He turned getting caught by local cops into an FBI manhunt. He turned less than $1,500 in bad checks into millions. He turned prison time into freedom. He turned failure into success. Frank Abagnale didn't catch anyone, but